Morning, everybody. It is time for Tao of the Day. The Tao of the Day is where you come on, you just join me at any moment, and you can pick a number between 1 and 81, and I will read your Tao for the day. There are 81 verses in the Tao, which translates to the canon of reason, the Tao Te Ching, or um, it has a lot of different translations. It can be translated into a lot of things because the Tao Te Ching is an ancient text and utilizing ancient language, and so it translates into essentially the canon of reason, as I like to think of it. I like to look at it as like this is the essential text that you need to know in order to live a reasonable life. And every day, right around 9 o'clock, sometimes it's 7, sometimes it's 6, but somewhere in the morning here in Central Time, I'm in Chicago. I come on and I get joined by Catherine to read the Tao of the Day. Catherine and I have been running into some problems with trying to get a good number that she hasn't picked before because she's on so much. How you doing, Catherine?
Oh no, it's because I'm on so much. Look at
No, I don't know. It's just you've picked so many numbers. I was going through. I have the Tao of the. I have my wisdom chats on my website, and you can search the wisdom chats, and I do like I use like when I do like little short descriptions. Like Catherine joined me again today, and so you can search your name and actually find all of the ones that you've picked.
Oh my goodness. I have a hard time searching on my own stuff.
I know. Like I put a search bar in just because I was like, oh well, what if someone wants to see all the times that you like read about 22 or something like that. And then they can find all the different conversations I've had about the different numbers. So
Nice. You don't have like a tracking system of like, oh, it's Catherine. Let's look at the regular numbers she's done.
no. I can do that research, so I can give you like these are the numbers you haven't picked. But I think like trying to go like it's interesting when we pick the same numbers because
I always,
it reminds us of how much maybe we're running on programming.
or just the energetic alignment, really.
Right.
Uh,
Yeah, that as well. Yeah.
yeah, I really think it's the energetic of something that needs
Like
to
you
be
are
noted.
energetically connecting to those six numbers, like those six lessons.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. Okay, 16. Have we done
Oh, I don't know. I don't have that in front of me.
that?
Let's see. Does this sound familiar? Empty your mind of all thoughts. Let your heart be at peace. Watch the turmoil of beings, but
I don't.
but contemplate their return. We have not done this. I don't think I've done this one yet at all.
That's what they told me. So
Each separate being in the universe returns to a common source. Returning to the source of serenity. If you don't realize the source, you stumble in confusion and sorrow. When you realize where you come from, you naturally become tolerant, disinterested, amused, kind-hearted as a grandmother, dignified as a king. Immersed in the wonder of the Tao, you can deal with whatever life brings you, and when death comes, you are ready.
the aliens are coming.
That deserves a ooh. The when death comes, you are ready. Yeah, that deserves a little
I felt more like
ooh.
the aliens are coming.
So this like this starts as we have discussed before, like empty your mind of all thought, let your heart be at peace. I don't know if we ever covered the one that says like um do you want to end your sorrow, stop thinking. But like I love that one, and that one like resonates here as well, like empty your mind
Hmm.
of all thoughts and let your heart be at peace. And talk to me about how that relates to intuition.
Well, it's intuition is it's such a mixed up, confused thing for people. But when you break it down to that moment when your mind is relaxed, you're kind of in that joy state, not like the woohoo joy, but just that calm, peaceful, grounded when you've released all of those thoughts, those rambling thoughts, those logical lists, and the fear, anger, or desperate injury emotions, and that over positivity. It's like that weird, interesting, magical Goldilocks zone where you can release that outcome and you just are like, whatever happens is going to be amazing. It's what's supposed to happen. And I am so excited and good for that.
Yeah, and this is where we start, right? Empty your mind of all thoughts. Like,
Mm-hmm.
all of those chattery thoughts, and let your heart be at peace. And that's what you just said, right? Like this idea of like everything's going to be okay. Like let your heart just
Yeah.
be at peace. Watch the turmoil of beings, but contemplate their return. Contemplate their return to outside of that turmoil, because like this is like the work that you do, right? Like when you're like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, you're struggling, let me like let's get in touch with your intuition. Let's empty your mind and let your heart be at peace, and you can return to that source of of I don't know what to say. You can do like that source of information that you can, gather
Mm-hmm.
from.
That all knowing, that universal consciousness, your direct connection with God, the creator, source, however
Yeah,
you want to put it,
yeah,
all about the thing. But it is, I do think about like, this is the moment you take the Hoover and you Hoover all the crap up. And then you take a spray washer and go, zzz. Okay, clarity.
right, right.
Right.
Each separate being in the universe returns to its common source. Returning to the source is serenity.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, think about it. When you are a small child, you're so connected to intuition. You haven't
Yeah.
you haven't built as many fears. You haven't built as much in the positivity. You haven't built a lot of experience of relying on that, or the thoughts. You may be surrounded by adults like that, but still, as a child, intuition is a much bigger guide for you. The need to jump into a water puddle because of joy. The children who stop are thinking about, my clothes are going to get dirty, or I'm going to get in
and
trouble.
and they might get in trouble, right? Like so
Yeah.
they're all of a sudden they're already living under the influence of fear, and
Hmm.
what's
Well,
going to happen if they get in trouble.
even like my friend's son, he was even 3, was such a neat freak, which was weird. She wasn't as much. And his concern was more he was going to get dirty, and that just wasn't okay with him. He was super tidy child in a weird way. Even just the
Yeah.
thought, yeah, there's fear behind that, but that was more driven by the thought of like, ooh, I'm going to get dirty. I don't, that's not a good thing, you know?
Yeah, he's got some idea about what it means to be dirty, rather than, and that's okay for him at that
Right.
moment, like he is that thing. But like here we're saying let your mind uh empty your mind of all thoughts, and the thought of, oh, I'm going to get dirty and what does dirty mean and all of that like comes with all of those sorts of hang-ups.
Hmm. And that joy, that moment of just walking along, stepping or splashing in a puddle, it's okay. Just your
Yeah.
intuition guides you into having a little bit of
And
fun.
And for that child, maybe that's not fun for that child. Maybe that's not joy for that child. And so
I
that
think they're taking
child will have to,
it seriously. They're taking
yeah, what's that?
taking life too seriously.
Well, maybe they're taking life as seriously as they need to at the moment. Maybe that is maybe they are in touch with their intuition, and we are out here judging that with our thoughts. Maybe they don't want to get dirty for a reason. Maybe they didn't want to jump in that puddle because their intuition was saying, "Oh, if you jump in that puddle, there's something in that puddle that you don't want." Like maybe because that child didn't have like they had a weakened immune system at that moment, and so they didn't want to get dirty because they knew something that we don't. And it's possible that this 3-year old was really in touch. Maybe he's a real clean freak, and I don't want to even utilize the word freak. Maybe he's just clean and tidy and does all these things, and that just might be, like hangover from another life or hangover
Yeah.
from something else.
Yeah, and that
Or it
one,
might just be like deep intuition somehow.
yeah, it could be for that particular one though. It was a weird. Uh,
Yeah, it might be
I mean,
uncomfortable for that child. But I always like to look at everything as being like, well, that is perfect for that child at that time, because like I don't want to judge a child for doing what they're doing, unless they're being forced to do it out of fear for of getting in trouble or something. But
but some kids
if you
too,
don't
even young
go on,
age, have a hard time relaxing and having some fun. Like I know quite a few very studious children. And it's like,
yeah,
relax a little bit. All your sisters and brothers are much more relaxed about things. Your parents are. You don't need
yeah,
to be so. There's some children that are super, super studious, which I think is a good reflection of how we are. But we're more in this, there's more of us that are studious in that sense than there are running and playing. And there's
right,
more we're willing to run to play, and there's a few studious. So I think it is a really good example in that sense of, it's okay to go play. Yes, there'll still be a few that are a little studious, but you know what? It's okay. Relax. Take your breath.
that's right. And I do think that has a lot to do with the way we have really designed this experience right now. Like we have
Hmm.
really, like as adults, we really honor and look at like studiousness, or like we look at success in a very certain way, and all of those things kind of you know so our children being affected by that, of course, I think that's going to be normal as well, especially as we move into the next stage of evolution, which I kind of feel is the spiritual sort of open, next stage of intuition, next stage of bringing about what we're leading people into. If you don't
Hmm.
realize the source, if you don't realize the source, you stumble in confusion and sorrow. When you realize where you come from, you naturally become tolerant, disinterested, amused, kind-hearted as a grandmother, and dignified as a king.
This one was really interesting to me because I had a conversation. It might have been yesterday or the day before. I'm not really sure. They're blending into one another lately. Um, and it was I talked with a woman, and she was extremely analytical, very, very analytical, logic, and really felt like intuition was extremely high risk because you needed logic, and the when you came to a logical conclusion, that was then basically intuition. And
Mm-hmm.
when you came to even the knowing that I talk about, that was intuition, but that was just a little hard to wrap brain around.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think the thought of releasing that and going back to our source is really confusing for people, because I really feel like intuition is going understanding and going back to who you really are,
Yeah,
and that's your natural state. And
yeah,
so,
yeah,
yeah, going back to that is about just really listening and reconnecting, and where all things are known, the past, the future at the same time. There really is no past or future. Everything that has been known before and about to be known is all available to you in your intuition through the universal consciousness. So it's like everything, but if we hold ourselves back, it's so much harder to get in that Goldilocks zone, that moment of joy.
yeah. And that's where this starts. If you don't realize your source, you stumble in confusion and sorrow.
Mm-hmm. Because we talked about
When you
before, like
realize,
making plans is when I found it's the most difficult. And
right,
yes, I'm still organized, but
of course,
I try not to make specific plans to allow my intuition to guide me, and it always takes me places I could never have possibly plotted at all.
right. Yeah, because and that's where we end up here, immersed in the wonder of the Tao.
Yep,
You can deal with whatever life brings you, and when
yep,
death comes, you are ready.
yep. And death, and the tarot and the cards of destiny. the death card is not death, you know? It's it's the ending of something and the beginning of
Right.
something else. It might be the end of your career as in corporate world and the beginning of a new business. It may be the end of a program that you've been running and the beginning of something new. It might be the end of a relationship or something new. It could be also, when it's a little uncomfortable in that sense of, I don't know. I also call it the graduation process of when you're leaving high school before you go to college, or you leave high school before you become an adult on your own more. That excitement and kind of apprehension at the same time. Like, people need to release that death as like, it's dun dun dun,
Right. Yeah. There are other, and you're gonna cut out soon, but I'll finish up here. There are other Tao that talk about the death and talk about death, and death is an interesting aspect of like we die every day to who we were yesterday,
Yep.
and that's something that really is a beautiful concept, right? This concept of, oh, we are dying to become who we will be tomorrow. And the Tao talks about it as being like you die but you don't perish, right? And that's the big difference. There's a big difference between death and perishing. You can die to what your identity is, but then you can continue living just as a new person and as a new experience. And so that's what 16 has for 16. What a great chapter. Thank you so much, Catherine. I'm gonna write a note really quick. If anybody else wants to come up, I would love to have you and have you pick a number between 1 and 81, and we will talk about the Tao. Oh, we do have somebody coming up. Emerald, my buddy Emerald. Emerald and I are going to be on Clubhouse on Monday on the Inner Room. So definitely check us out there. We're going to be talking about the profundity of sobriety. Emerald, how are you doing?
Hey, how are you doing, Martin John?
I'm
Great.
doing really well. I want to
Great.
say, like last Monday, what a great room you had going.
Oh, what a great room. I mean, you were so amazing. Everyone was like, oh my God, this was so profound. I got so many back channels. So many people felt so connected to what you shared. So I'm really excited to do a part two this Monday. I think a lot of
Absolutely.
people, yeah, they really got a lot out of it. So that was beautiful. So yeah, so I'm glad I caught you today, because I love this that you do here on wisdom with the pick a number, pick a chapter. So I didn't know if it was a chapter or are these verses.
It's hard for me to understand what these are. They're short. I mean, there's 81 of them. I guess they're verses, but I don't think it is compiled into a single text, and it's not continual. One doesn't necessarily lead into the other, but they are grouped into different sections, right?
Right.
So I never really know what to call them. I like to call them stanzas. Sometimes I like to call them verses. Sometimes, like it's really open to interpretation. Like I also like to call them things. Like, want to pick one of these things. It's because it's hard. Like, you can even call them maybe like episodes. I don't know. But they might be verses. It's not really poetry. It's just writing, and they're compiled together.
Right.
So there's 81 of them. And what number would you like to look at today?
I heard to pick 81.
81. Beautiful. And this is beautiful for you because you're on both on Clubhouse and Wisdom, and I think this is a beautiful verse for just speaking. True words aren't eloquent. Eloquent words aren't true. Wise men don't need to prove their point, but men who need to prove their point aren't wise. The master has no possessions. The more he does for others, the happier he is. The more he gives to others, the wealthier he is. The Tao nourishes by not forcing, by not dominating. The master leads.
Wow. Okay, could you read it again?
We'll go through it line by line.
Okay.
So, true words aren't eloquent. Eloquent words aren't true. What are your thoughts there?
Okay, true words aren't elegant, and elegant words aren't true. Okay, so true words, they're not always what people want to hear, so to speak. Sometimes, like, we'll say to one another, this may not be what you want to hear, but, this is the truth, and we need to get to the truth. So, say, like in a relationship, you might ask your partner, is this is this what is actually going on? And your partner's like, yes. Now, that might not be what you want to hear. That might not feel elegant. That might not be the love, the love story in the relationship. But that truth is really able to a lot of times pull the relationship into a real connection, as opposed to saying something elegant, which saying something elegant at that point may kind of soothe the ego or soothe a need for, for things to look a particular way, but it's not going to take us through that journey where we find out that in spite of anything, love is not based in this elegance of what we've been told it is, but this is actually what it is, and going through that connection, then a lot of times, like I have a really good friend, and one of the people in the relationship ended up having a child from someone outside of their marriage, and it actually where the person that came into the marriage thought that it was going to destroy the marriage, it actually bonded them. And because they started to talk about it and they started to realize, you know what, blah 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 blah. And so the whole thing wasn't elegant at all, but because it was true. The truth is, yes, 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 yes. And once we got to those yeses, we could get to some understanding, some understanding, some growth, some potential to decide
Hmm.
what we want to do either way. And so,
And I wanna also point out that it's not elegant; it's eloquent.
oh,
Now,
eloquent.
no.
Okay.
That's fine. That's fine. The elegant that, as you're describing it, works. Um, Eloquent means a little different though, and I just want to bring this up because it's important to understand what we're looking at and what we're trying to say. And you're right. When you try to gussy up the truth, you're just putting makeup on a pig.
Right.
Like, you
Right.
have to be honest, and
Right.
being honest is what we're trying to express here. But eloquent means like it's it could be persuasive, or it could clearly express or indicate something. So it can clearly express something. True words don't necessarily clearly express things. And things that are clearly expressed are not true. So that's really what we're talking about here in these first two lines of true words aren't eloquent. True words don't necessarily express things clearly. And things that are expressed really clearly are probably not true. Now, the reason that I like to break that apart that way is because the complexity of which this child that you mentioned was born, the complexity of the expression, the complexity of the emotions, the complexity of the situation under which that child was born, they cannot be expressed clearly, right? Even if you lay it all out, it just becomes, like, but you have to feel the person trying to express it, because it's not eloquent. It's impossible to clearly express what's going on.
Right.
Like, there's truth, and when you're being honest and you can feel that honesty, you can get to that place of being in faith with someone else.
Right. Right. And okay, yeah, because I apologize. I thought it was
No,
I
no, no, no,
heard,
no. And
yeah.
you expressed something beautifully. And you expressed that idea that, like, when you try and make something beautiful, you're just, like, you can't. If you're trying to make something sound beautiful, you're not being honest.
Right. Right. And I love what you said there because, again, it's a really difficult concept when we hear, certain things, say in a relationship, something like that. It's hard to wrap our mind around that someone could actually come out and be more united through that situation, rather than just completely torn apart. And it's because of what you just described, and that when they got to that core truth and there were no more shadows. I'm just here, this is what's been going on. Well, here, this is what's been going on with me, and here and here and here. So rather than this child representing some all of these places where we were separate, this child is actually now a symbol of where we're going to put everything on the table, like you said, and we're going to just be 100% truthful with what's been going on, regardless if the child had never been born. Symbolically, there was that thing that was keeping us acting, rather than being. So yeah, I love what you just said there.
Yeah.
And they had to, and talking to both of them, because both of them are my friend, they actually said what you just said. They were like, we got to a place where with one another that we had never been before, ever. Dating, being married, many years, and all of these things, we had never experienced that part. And they said, and it was a part where it was unspoken. It was just, I could feel for once my husband, I could feel my wife. I really could feel them, not just here's my wife, here's my husband, and we're doing all these, outward things. But they really started to bond through that, like you said, that place where it's not it's not just makeup on the pig, so to speak, but it is going into
Right.
that whole first line, or yeah, where it wasn't this, but it was that all at the same time. So yeah,
Yeah, it's interesting. You want to be able to see people as they are, not as they identify.
right.
And that's something I always try to do, like I want to be able to see somebody for who they are through all of the identity that they're throwing at you. They so easily can just they can get they we all like to get caught up in our identity, but to love someone for who they are, and that means loving them as they shed their identity, loving them as they change and grow. And that's the thing. Like in this 81, true words aren't eloquent. Eloquent words aren't. It's not easy to describe. It's not easy to be present
Mhm.
with. It's not easy
Mhm.
to do those things. But you love them through that, because and that doesn't mean that you have to put yourself in danger. It doesn't mean you have to
Right.
invest in anything. It just means that you love them anyway. And then we come to this next line: wise men don't need to prove their point, and men who need to prove their point aren't wise. You don't have to prove that, and this is why you don't have to continually, suffer abuse, because you don't need to prove that you love someone by suffering their abuse. You can step away and you can do whatever you need to do, or you can prove that this is your space, that you are here present in this moment without having to prove anything, and you just stand tall here present.
Right. Right.
And then we
Yes.
move into: the master has no possessions. The more he does for others, the happier he is, and the more he gives to others, the wealthier he is.
Yeah, that's basically, to me, to sum it up, that's attachment. Because when anything that we make our possession, the root cause or the root energy of that is attachment. And once we're attached to it, then we don't even enjoy it, because we attachment creates fear. Underneath attachment is fear. That's why we're attached, because the roots of that attachment are fear. And so and then going back to my friends, which, again, it's a difficult thing for us to wrap our mind around, because we're going to see it as separate, as attached, as, this was mine, that should have been this way, rather than when we're in that state of flow, and we're simply just seeing what it is, and we're like you were talking about the child who, or the person that was just on, and they said, their friend had the little boy who didn't want to get dirty, and like you said, maybe it was our judgment as to saying, well, him not jumping in the puddle is making him this way and that way. Again, it's our perception, and then we get attached to that perception, and then that perception makes us have the judgment. The judgment then makes us go into some sort of emotion about it. But if we're just observing, and we're saying, okay, this is now, what is this? And we get into that child state, like your other guest was just talking about. We get into that child state of just awareness, observation, and then being and exploring, and then finding ourself in it, rather than going into it, like you said, with an identity and saying, this is who I am, this is how, because if, and that's where I'm going to be attached,
Right. And then
and
we
that,
can
and I'm
get
going to possess that identity, and I'm going to possess your identity, and I'm going to, and then what, like you said, when we go into our natural state of metamorphosis to change, then it's going to be a ripping, it's going to be a tearing, it's going to be a bleeding, ripping the scab off, the band-aid off, rather than just simply, there is no identity, it's just simply being, it's existing. Today I'm really neat and I don't want to be in that puddle, but tomorrow I may jump in a hole, who knows what. Because again, all of that is me, and then the next day I may not choose to do any of that. All of it is me, all of it.
right. And so it's not having any possessions and being able to give up all of those, um, for others, and to give and do for others in order to be present with yourself. And you don't have to hold on to that identity. And then we
Yeah.
finish this up, and it says, the Tao nourishes by not forcing, by not dominating. The master leads. I know you only
And
got a couple seconds left, so if you want to come on to finish that, otherwise I can wrap this up.
okay, yeah, I can come back in just a second.
Okay, that'd be great. So yeah, so as we wind Emerald down and she comes back on, I just want to go back to this. The master has no possessions. The more he does for others, the happier he is. The more he gives to others, the wealthier he is. When you give yourself freedom to be who you are giving to others, and you are doing for others. That just happens naturally. That's where you are. It's when we are connected to all things. And so by not holding on to our identity, by not holding on to that ego that wants to just define who we are, we're able to be present for others. We're able to love deeper. The Tao nourishes by not forcing, by not dominating. The master leads. Emerald?
Yeah, and I think you summed it up. I think that that goes back to the part just before that, possession, because a lot of times when we hear possession, we think of tangible things, possession, ownership
Mm,
of something tangible, but the possession is in the way that we see something. That's the greatest possession that we hold. It's not even something tangible. It's the hardest thing for us to do is let go of how we perceive something, or how we think how something is supposed to be, including ourselves. How am I supposed to be? How am I supposed to look? And so that possession then causes, like we said, now leading, having no possessions allows the master to lead, meaning that at that point, again, I'm able to simply allow what's happening because that is what's happening. And rather than me bringing uh, a stick down onto what's happening, I simply can take what's happening like a child again, going back to that childhood state, and simply saying, okay, this is what's happening. It's raining outside, and this is a
mm,
puddle, and I want to jump in. Or it's raining outside, and I don't belong outside at this time. But if you're outside, I don't have to possess you or possess your decision to be outside and then dictate to you what's supposed to happen. So I'm able to lead, not in the fact that you're following me, but in the fact that I'm able, energetically, I'm able to simply allow and be, and you're able to be, and that is the real leadership. The real leadership isn't the follow, you're following me and I'm at the head and everyone's in a single line, doing what I say. That goes back into the possession and the ownership of an identity, but simply leading is simply like they say in a lot of the in a lot of the religious texts, it's simply letting your light shine and then allowing that for others, because their truth is their truth, and I'm going to learn and understand something greater when, like that child, I'm simply allowing that ant to walk across my leg and I'm just watching it. I'm not trying to dictate to it. I'm watching it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what we're saying here, I think, is, like what the Tao finishes it by saying is the Tao nourishes by not forcing.
Yeah.
Remember earlier on, it's like true words aren't eloquent.
Yeah.
Eloquent words
Yeah.
aren't true. Wise
Yeah.
men don't need to prove their point. Men who need to prove their point aren't wise. What is proving your point if it's not forcing?
Exactly.
Right?
And that,
By not dominating, the master leads. The master's not trying to dominate the conversation. The master's not trying to dominate your ideas. It's not trying to dominate you. It's allowing you to be here because the master has no possession, so it doesn't possess you. And he does for you. He gives you space in order to be who you are and in order to say what you say. And that way, the true words can come out because they're not eloquent, and they
right.
can persist and they can be present. And that is how the master is able to lead, by giving voice to everything around it and giving love to all the things that cross his or her path. Emerald, thank you so much for joining me and continuing to talk after, coming back on and chatting with me. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you. I mean, I'm sorry. Thank you,
No,
Martin
that's you.
Sound.
That's you.
Yeah. Thank you. I was reading my name. I was looking down at the screen
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
because I'm flashing. But thank you, Martin. And I'm going to continue to listen. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Okay, that was Emerald, and we talked to Catherine. Does anybody else want to come on? I've had 45 people scroll through. If anybody's still listening and wants to come on and give me a number, I think I'll pick a
Martin,
number today. Oh,
how
did you
do,
not go away?
yeah, how do I get off? I'm,
I thought I had you go off. I think you can leave on the bottom of the screen. There might be a
okay.
button that says leave.
Okay.
I don't know if that's true. But it doesn't look like you're on with me. So maybe nobody can come on if Emerald's still on. The button, I believe, is like gray on black, so I think it's hard to see. Are you still on? No. Okay, good. I would assume that you would have said something. So yeah, so if anybody wants to come on and give me a number between 1 and 81, I would love to have you on. We discussed number 16, we discussed number 81. I am always open to having more people come on and pick more numbers and chat about the Tao. I don't know. I've been on for a little over a half hour, and I'm going to go ahead and pick a number 73. No, not 73. Not 73. Why not 73? Let's see. What do we got for 73? The Tao is always at ease. Mm. It overcomes without competing, answers without speaking a word, arrives without being summoned, accomplishes without a plan. Its net covers the whole universe, and through its meshes, and though its meshes are wide, it doesn't let a thing slip through. So nice. I just want to sit here with that for a moment. The Tao is always at ease. It doesn't care. That's the big thing. We care about so much. We care about who we are. We care about how other people think of us. We care about all these things. But the Tao is always at ease. It overcomes without competing, answers without speaking a word, arrives without being summoned, accomplishes without a plan. I do have to tip my hat to Catherine with her work in the world of intuition, because this is what intuition means, right? It overcomes without competing. It doesn't have to compete with you in order to overcome something. It doesn't have to compete with that which is, making it not feel at ease. Because it is always at ease, it doesn't need to compete. And if we can find a way to be at ease, we won't need to compete. And it answers without speaking a word. Have you ever talked to somebody as a mentor and as someone who someone who takes clients in the world of recovery and in my recovery yourself work? There are times where I'm able to just ask a question or just sit quietly even and let my client speak until they get it. Right? They say it, say it, say it, say it. Boom! They see it. They see it. Like all of a sudden, it's right in front of them. Right? Like, and that's the Tao. Just like being present. How beautiful, right? Like answers without speaking a word. Like there are times where we can wring our fists and shake our fist at the sky and say why, and there it is. The answer is why. It arrives without being summoned. How many times have you called someone and they thought like, "Oh, this is I was just thinking about you," right? Like that is so beautiful. And Bella's joining me, and I love speaking to Bella, and I love what she has to say. So Bella, welcome.
Hello.
Hello.
How are you?
I am beautiful. I'm doing ravishing.
Excellent, excellent. That's what I like to hear.
And
Uh,
yourself?
by grace, by grace.
Nice.
I just loved that card because I was just lying here reflecting, and that beautiful card came up. And we've had this discussion before, but isn't it so that when we're intuitive or we have intuition, we're actually connecting to our higher self, which is love. So
Yeah.
there's no need for explanation because the answer is there because love is in everything and everywhere and it's in our higher self. So we just have to sit back and know we're connected and we have all the answers.
Yes. And we have access to all the answers, and I
Yes.
think that's a beautiful thing. Like the idea of for me, like I don't like letting words get in the way of good communication, because words can be so sticky. People get
Mhm,
stuck on words, and I like to just be like, all of the answers that we need are within us, but
mhm,
that doesn't mean that we have the answer for anybody else.
mhm. But I don't know about that because um, I think our first discussion was on this. Because if the divine intelligence, source of every universal intelligence, or any other name you'd like to call itself. And I think I've used this statement here, but Dad used to say, you cannot get wet from the word water. So
Yes.
this, whatever it is in everything. And the ancient masters have expressed it as love. Then it's infinite, it doesn't have boundaries. So when we are all connected to our higher selves, when we do connect with people, it's because that divine essence, or whatever name we want to call it, is connected to the other person.
And
So there's
speaking
no,
through us.
yes, we're connected.
Yes.
And therefore, using words is actually constraining it because we are
Mm,
describing it with our finite experience.
so finite. Words are so they just they don't do justice to what we're experiencing.
Exactly, exactly, exactly. And I loved it when you shared your story because it reminded me of something Deepak Chopra said. He said, anybody who is addicted to something, or words to that effect, it's not because they want to be addicted to something, it's because they're trying to reach bliss, reach a
Yes.
place. Perhaps I could add this to the great Deepak Chopra, reach a space where they're no longer connected with their senses, their belief structures, and all the things that their environment or the signals say they have to be in order to be belong. So when you are in that bliss with drugs or anything, I'm not saying I condone drug taking, but I'm just saying that need to be there without the constraints of what signals around you. Be there outside those finite experiences.
Yeah.
Hmm. And yeah, yeah, that's what that's what I that's what comes to me, and that's I think what intuition is. And
Yeah. No,
this,
and I think, like that idea that it also arrives without being summoned. That's the next line.
yes,
Right? Like
yes,
it arrives without being summoned. Like
exactly.
you didn't call in, let's say, the desire to in my recover from drug use. You were fine just escaping, but then here it is, it arrives, and now it's with you. And every
Yeah.
time you work from a place of intuition, every time you trust, then you're being guided to be in touch with not only yourself
Hmm.
but everything else.
Exactly, because that divine essence, or whatever name you want to give it, is in everything else. So you actually come out stronger because you know you have an experience
Right.
of what it is, and whatever it was which was stopping you from being your higher self, you have a much better understanding of it.
Yeah, you are owning your connection. And you
Exactly.
don't and you don't need and you don't need to put words to it. You don't need to make a plan. You need to be present. And then,
Ex-
yes, maybe you need a structure in order to stay present. Maybe that looks like AA or NA or some other group or some other religion or whatever to get you there. But those things don't have to become your dogma.
exactly. Exactly. And those structures, what are they trying to do? They're trying to give a roadmap to connecting with your higher self, to be true to
Yes.
yourself. I've not been to a meeting, but I've heard of it because I'm interested in nearly everything. But the core of, I think, their statements, and I remember reading it once and thinking to myself, "Wow." The first thing they say is they acknowledge a supreme power greater themselves. And I would interpret that as a supreme power greater than the beliefs and boundaries we've been brought up to believe.
Yes, and that's how I deemed it, and I was my own higher power through my time.
Exactly.
And it
Ex-
wasn't it wasn't the me that was; it was the me that was going to be.
exactly. But it is you.
It
It
is,
is you.
but it isn't me as I understood myself from my past. It
Exactly.
isn't the identity that I held on to that had to be
Exactly. Because
escape
that
me.
because that identity you thought would bring you love, would bring you connected to your highest self. And it didn't. And because it didn't, perhaps you try to find a way which will get you back on track.
Yes.
Hmm. Because
Hmm.
I remember in psychiatry when I was studying it, I remember they gave us all these subjects to do a presentation on, and I remember one. I decided to. I'd been to a museum on Fifth Avenue, and I saw this book. Is it BDSM? It was a picture by a famous photographer in black and white. And so one of the subjects was that. It wasn't the normal subjects. When I say normal, I mean what society deemed as normal, because all the students would pick that. But it
Right.
was subjects which would would stretch us and make us understand. And the reason for that is that you never knew what type of patient you were going to get. And you couldn't then, you know, open your eyes wide in amazement if they said something. So I chose BDSM. And the more I looked at the pictures, the more I saw the art behind it.
Yeah.
When I looked at it without judgment, when I looked at it without what society had told me, when I looked at it from the lens of the photographer, when I looked at it in the sense of the holistic aspect, and that's I think that was part of my growth in looking at things from a holistic aspect rather than a linear. And if it then has a check in me, I have to ask myself, why is it? Because
That's right.
when, yeah, because when we had these lectures and all these people came in, you know, seeing all things which was like beyond my widest imagination, you know what I mean? They looked normal. You know, they were just there happy to tell us. They didn't have any
Yeah.
shame. They didn't say that. They were, if I saw them or sat next to them on the subway, I wouldn't even know. So,
Right.
so all of these lessons, all of these rules, which we then try to say this is our path, may distract us from our higher self, which is love. And love is in everything, in everybody. There's a saying in Christianity that when it rains on the rich and poor, the bad and good. It doesn't say, you know what, you've done
Yeah.
all these good things today, so you know you're not going to have any rain on you. You know what I mean? So when we see life like that, we, our intuition increases because we're more and more connected with our high self, and all the ancient texts talk about not having judgment. And when we
Mm.
don't have judgment, I think, and this is my belief, we can then connect with our intuition much more because we're opening to listening to that still voice.
Yeah. We spoke today already about this idea of being present for all things. And if
Mm-hmm,
you look at BDSM as deviant,
mm-hmm,
then you can't be present for it.
mm-hmm,
And
mm-hmm,
and 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 those who, practice BDSM are very likely to, like, you are very likely to turn your back on them once you learn that. But that
mm-hmm,
is so arbitrary.
mm-hmm.
It has
And
no bearing on you, and so many people that judge others for their sexual orientation or their gender identity, or
mm-hmm,
the way that they carry themselves or what they do
mm-hmm,
in their bedroom. All of these things are, and the first line of the 73 is the Tao is always at ease.
mm-hmm.
And that's the thing, like, when you judge, you are not at ease. When we judge, we are not at ease.
Excellent.
We are uneasy about something within ourselves, probably.
Exactly, exactly. So the answer is always within yourself. And the more you are non judgmental, the more you learn, and the more you learn about yourself, and the more you deal with the judgments within yourself. Because it's not out there, it's within yourself.
No,
It,
absolutely. Every
it's,
single one.
yeah, it's not the person, the event, it's you. So, what is it
Hmm.
that is bringing up that? And so, you know, I've had the pleasure of working with addicts, etc. And I can say this to you, the more you listen, the better the treatment course. The less you listened, the worse and the games that were played.
Yeah.
And I learned that very, very, very quickly.
Yeah, it's once again we start talking about like how can you be present for all things.
Hmm. Hmm.
Listen, be don't assume you know.
Hmm. Hmm.
Just be present and be yourself in this moment.
Exactly. Authenticity.
Right.
Authenticity. And that's where intuition comes. Because what is it when Dan says? Be open to everything. I can't think of it, but basically, I don't. It was Tagore. I can't remember the statement, but next time I come on, I will
I'm,
look it
I'm,
up.
I'm sure you will. Yeah,
Uh,
yeah. I can see the statement. I just don't know what it is. I
yeah,
know what you're saying is be open to everything that presents itself to you in your life, and don't presume to like limit it by your perception.
exactly, exactly. That's the essence.
Yeah.
That is the
Oh,
essence.
Bella, thank you so much for joining me. I appreciate, love you so much. Um, So this 73, I'm going to read it through one more time. The Tao always is at ease, is always at ease. It overcomes without competing, answers without speaking a word, arrives without being summoned, accomplishes without a plan. And that, what, and let me finish. Its net covers the whole universe, and though its meshes are wide, it doesn't let a thing slip through. Bella and I were talking about like this first part of this, and we didn't really get into accomplishes without a plan, or I didn't mention that yet, but that is what we were talking about. Like when you can be you and open to others being others and who they are and what they're doing and why they're there, like you recognize that it is the Tao that is bringing you here, that there is more behind this than you can ever imagine. Then you don't have to have a plan for what's going to happen. You just show up. You show up and try to be at ease with whatever's happening. In a couple months, I'm going to be going down to Mexico and spending 8 days in a dark room. I'm doing a dark retreat. I'm gonna be alone with myself for 8 days for a week, and that's going to be a challenge and one that I'm really looking forward to. Because I want to shed more and I want to be more me. I feel like as long as I go in there without a plan, as long as I go in there knowing that I am going in there to learn, but not to learn anything specific, just I'm going in there to have this experience, then it is. Regina's going to join me. I see Bella's on there as well, but I'm bringing Regina on. Regina, how are you?
Hi.
Sorry, Bella. I
Hi.
just saw that Bella was on as well. So nice to see you. Sorry, I missed you this morning. I started my thing, and as soon as I started my Tao of the day, I was like, oh, I missed Regina's talk.
I I came in when there was one and it was 9:29 right before I was going to start and I said, "Oh, darn it. I don't know the
Oh
time."
man, I was
But
like, like it was. I didn't even look at my
oh,
audience list when I was there,
no,
and then I looked at my clock, and I'm like, oh, I wanted to.
you're
Ugh,
so good.
I wanted to visit
I
with
love
Regina.
this. I love this about us. I love this about this community. And I have three things to say. First of all, buen camino.
Buen camino.
Oh my gosh.
Ay, mi amor.
I'm so proud of you. I cannot believe I mean, I can believe you're doing this, but wow, I've got to know I'm going to be doing special intentions for you that time when you're in this
Yeah, I'll let you know.
darkness.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
it's
Oh,
gonna be a pretty intense thing, and it's something that I've wanted to do for a minute now. So I'm excited to see what it uncovers for me, or what it maybe it'll just be fine. Maybe I'll just walk away being like, yeah, so I did that.
yeah, that was
NBD.
cool. Right.
Yeah,
You know, I doubt it, but yeah, you never know.
yeah, me too.
Second thing is when you and Bella were speaking, I thought of one of the phrases that I use in my training, and that is notice everything, cling to nothing.
Ah, yes. That's very similar to what we were
Yes,
pointing to. Yeah.
I think so too. And the third thing is, darn it, I'm fighting against the Tao today. I get it. I know. I know.
Well,
And
why? The Tao is always
well,
at ease.
at exactly right. And I notice I'm not at ease today.
Okay,
So may I tell you a little story and get your input on it?
please.
Okay, so this is really ridiculous.
Well, let's
Uh,
not judge it yet.
okay, you're right.
Well, let's
No
not judge it at
judgment.
all. Like, actually, yeah.
Right. Let's be at ease. Let's be at ease.
Yeah.
Um, I I have been married for I've been with my husband for 32 years. We are very much the yin and the yang. And I think we've both shifted a little bit during the pandemic. But okay, so I find joy in the simplest of things. And what I love about the way my brain works is I let go, like, if it's not important, if I don't need to know it in the moment, it's off my plate. It's off that working memory plate and I can let it go. And it feels so good. It brings me joy to forget. That might sound silly to some people, but it doesn't bother me a
I
bit.
love forgetting.
And we got little plastic vote like little candles for our house for Christmas time. And at the beginning, so this is the way I operate. I tear open the packages, I run around the house, I make them all work, and then I go away. And I was like, "Yay, the house has lights." So here's me at nighttime. I turn all the lights on. Before I go to bed, I go around the house and I'm unscrewing the little tops of them, the flame, if you will,
Yeah.
to make the lights stop. So then, Martin, and thank you for being patient with this story.
All right.
So then I'm doing this practice every day for several days. And during this practice, sometimes what I noticed is the lights would be on when I thought they were off and off when I thought they were going to be on. And I was very confused. And it created this great discussion in the house with my husband and my 14-year-old son. Have you been touching the lights? Have you been messing with the lights? How do we know what's going on with these lights? And my husband said, "Well, did you read the package?" I said, "Well, no, I didn't. They're just somebody told you put the batteries in, you turn the flame, and you make them go." So he said, "Where's the package?" I said, "It's in the recycling bin. I'm going to go out and read about it and figure out what the instructions are." No,
Mhm.
no, no, don't do it. I go out, I pull the package out of the recycling. It says that these silly little plastic lights have a timer. Martin, have
Yeah.
you ever heard of such a thing? They're so
Yes,
cheap.
I have.
They have a
Yeah.
little timer, so they're
Yeah.
on
No,
for
yeah,
they're
yeah.
on for five
China can
hours.
do anything for pennies. China can do anything
I'm
for pennies.
I'm so overjoyed by the simplicity of what this little light can do. Not only that, but I have been doing too much. I've been overworking. I can
Mhm.
just turn these little lights on and let them go. That is the greatest joy of my life. Turn something on and walk away. Are you kidding? So I am overjoyed with this. And I say, yes, it's got an internal timer. We just turn them on and let them go. Nobody has to do another thing with the lights. We are free. And I skip away. And it creates this argument with my husband who wanted to read about the lights, who wanted to investigate this timer. He doesn't believe in me that it's this simple, or he just wants to know more because it's important for him as a scientist to know this. And
Yeah.
so for 24 hours, we've not spoken. And I said, this is dangerous to our relationship right now. Drop it. It's not important. Thus, my talk today was define important. That's what I
Right.
spoke about. But you see, how could a little light create such angst?
Well, it's not. It doesn't have anything to do with the light. It has
You're
to do
right.
with you
You're right.
robbing him of his of his desire to not only help you, not only love you by looking that up, but you robbed him of his intrigue. And
Mm,
you told him, don't do that.
right.
And
It's
then
not important. Hmm.
you did it.
Hmm.
And so the thing is it like he's angry, I think. Like, and I don't know him, so I can't speak to why he's angry. But if I were him, I would be mad at you for not letting me love you
Mm,
and for not letting me do the thing that I do for you. And that's the thing I think that would break my heart is that, you know, me feeling, and again, this is just me speaking from like, oh, what would I experience if you had done that to me?
yes, this is helpful.
You know, I would experience a lot of like, well, why didn't she let me do that? Like I could have done that and I could have been the like and I could have been like, "Oh, there's a timer on these. Did you know that, dear?" And then we could celebrate together in this way of being like a team. What ended up
Right.
happening is you said, "Let me go and look." He says, "Let me go and look." And you say, "No." And you don't tell him you're going to look, is my guess. And then you went and looked and found out there was a timer. And then you wanted to celebrate with him and he's like, "What's there to celebrate? You stole my fire."
Right.
So the
Oh,
thing that's
men.
damaging to the
Yes.
relationship isn't him
Yes.
being mad as much. Well, I mean, we all have to take, he has to take responsibility for the relationship as he needs to, but you do as well. And so this thing of you playing the victim to his anger rather than rather than
Mm,
realizing that maybe you weren't, you weren't a good teammate at that
yes.
moment.
Teamwork makes the dream work. Yes, I totally get this. And see, this is where I mean, you know me a little bit
A little
more
bit.
than some people. And I'm all about being at ease,
Yeah.
about releasing the constriction. And yet here I am not being at ease, whole constricting.
Well, I'd like
Bec-
to take this a little further to explore you a bit, if you don't mind. Like, what when you didn't know what was going on with the candles, what was your story about that?
mm. My
What did you
story,
believe?
yes, okay. I believed that either we weren't twisting them enough to engage the batteries.
We? Who's the
We
we?
like, right, collectively. So sometimes my husband would do the lights, sometimes I would do the
Okay,
lights.
and that's cool.
What's
Like
like
being
me?
like
Hmm.
you didn't. That wasn't your job because in the story that you told, it seemed to be your job.
Right. And I do tend to be hyper aware of turning things off. That's childhood stuff. But
Okay. Yeah.
turning, making sure electricity is off, that we're not wasting
Yeah.
anything. Yeah.
Right. Hmm.
Yeah. And, and, mm, yeah. So that was the story I told about and then we were sort of having like, did you turn the light? Did I turn, did somebody? And my husband kept saying, when I looked at the lights were off. And I'm like, but I didn't turn the lights off. How did they go off? I just, and I don't get upset about these things. I just got curious.
Right. Well,
So
it's
I,
yeah, now getting curious, like depending on like the angle that you're approaching that curiosity,
right.
it could be frustrating
Yeah.
because you're trying to like curiosity is one thing, but like I don't know why. Like that's not necessarily curious. Like when you approach a problem with like I can't figure it out, right? Like that's
You're
not
right. That's not,
necessarily
mm-mm.
curiosity,
Yeah, you're right.
right?
Hmm.
And so that leads me to believe that I'm gonna come out with a word that you haven't used, and I don't like doing that, but there's only so much time. Like sabotage.
Yes. Okay.
Like that seems to be a theme in this story where it's just like, oh, people are doing things and I can't control it,
Hmm. Oh yeah. Oh yes. Control is a thing. Hmm.
right? So
Firstborn.
because you
Yeah.
can't control it, you can't dictate what's happening, and nobody's giving you a direct answer
Right.
until you read the box. And when you read the box, all of a sudden, nobody's your enemy anymore.
Right.
Yet
Yeah.
another reason, like if your husband and your 14-year-old boy think that they're they're not giving you the right answer, they could really go into their shell and be scared to address things, because you're a
Ah,
powerful woman. Like you have a powerful sense about you, especially when you feel like you're going to be losing control. And so they could very much feel very aggrieved at the idea that, like, see, it wasn't us. And you put these candles in front of us.
right. Yeah.
And now I'm hurt.
Yeah. Wow. Maybe we ought to bring, China into this. We have like the problems that are caused by other countries in our relationships. Oh
Well,
my
we could
goodness.
play the victim, but I think
You're
I
right.
think the opportunity isn't there. I think the opportunity is in recognizing your
Yeah.
relationship to having control of something, and that you felt like out of control because they weren't present. And the control thing's going to go into other areas as well. I'm sure you
Sure.
get triggered by losing control pretty often, just from, like, even in listening to your Camino thing, it was like the idea of holding on to all your stuff was about being in control,
Yeah.
right? The idea of, once you sent your pack ahead, so you could walk alone without your pack, like, you felt like that's not right. There's a rule here.
Yeah.
Like, you're good, like, I'm gonna utilize the Christian thing, whether or not you're Christian or not, or Catholic or not. Like, you're a good Catholic. You have that guilt of, like, having to do your part, like that's all under the surface here. And that's the work that, like,
Mm,
you're gonna have to explore, understanding that those are lies and those are things that are taking you away from what you really want.
right. And our tendency to skip over parts that either we don't notice or we don't recognize in other people, like skipping over all of that. I went right to the end and said, "It works. We don't have to do anything. Thanks everybody. I'm out."
Right.
You
Yeah.
know. And they were not done. My husband was not done with that conversation. So
No.
this was insightful,
No.
as I knew it would be.
Oh, thank you.
Well, thank you. I appreciate you so much. And thanks for all of those who are listening and putting up with my silly little holiday candle story. But perhaps you can find something in it to use.
Well, I think, like, you call it silly, and I know you got 7 seconds left, so I'm going to talk right through your ending. So I just want to say I love you. Thank you
I
so
love
much
you
for being
too.
here.
Thanks. Thank you.
Um, so oop, 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 oop. Let me cancel that phone call. So what were we saying? Yeah, like your silly little holiday thing or whatnot. It's not like, even if people are listening to this and they get something out of it, the thing that really is important is that you are present with who you are and doing this work, because now, you know allowing yourself to grow in this way is the work. And even if nobody was listening and everybody, jumped off, like, so be it. Oh, Bella is joining me again. But thank you, Carrie. I really appreciate you coming on, Regina. Bella,
Oh,
welcome back.
Martin, thank you so much. And thank you both, you and Regina, for that discussion. And it points out to me that there is a higher power, because the statement was, be open to everything but attached to nothing.
Yes.
And although we were discussing it, I think Regina's story um, resonated with that, because we sometimes attach ourselves to a belief with enough conviction that we disallow any other thing that doesn't align with that belief to manifest in our reality.
That
And that,
happens every day, right? With
yes,
each and every one of us.
exactly. So, although Regina was saying it was a candle story, it was actually reflecting that. And perhaps the reason I couldn't remember the statement was that universal intelligence, God, spirit knew that Regina was going to come up and there was going to be a deep dive into that. And I just wanted to just to say, well, thank you for that, and just to give the statement again. And wow, what insight!
Yes.
Last thing is that great. You going in for your retreat. I look forward to hearing from it because, as I've always said, we either pay attention to our senses or we pay attention to our inner self. And that decision is free will. So I'm looking forward to hearing from what occurred because you don't have your senses. So the only way you have, the thing you have, not only way, the thing you have is connecting to your inner self. So
Yeah.
wishing you the very, very best and thank you for bringing me up and stay blessed.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Bella. You are such a light, and I appreciate all of the good wishes on my dark retreat because it is not necessary. It's like I'll admit I'm scared. Like being in the dark for 8 days, there's nothing not scary about that. Like like being with myself. Like our eyes take in so much, like yes, we feel our clothes. I'll feel my clothes. I'll hear things. I'll smell things. Like all that kind of stuff is going to be there. I mean, I'll be in buildings, so there I'll be in a space. So the smell might go away after quite some time because it'll all be the same, and it's going to be in a pretty quiet area. It's like in the forest. So I'm looking forward to being with myself for 8 days. It's going to be intense, like the circus. So I'm going to finish this 73, which says, its net covers the whole universe, and though its meshes are wide, it doesn't let a thing slip through. We're talking about intuition, and if you think about what Bella was saying, she was trying to think of a quote, and then Regina came on and said the quote, and then Bella came back on and recognized that, and nothing got slipped through, nothing got missed. Everything is here. Its meshes are wide. When we kind of talk about that, I mean, I don't know where Bella is, and I think Regina's in Michigan, and I'm in Chicago. Like, we're being held. We're all being held together, and that's the thing. Like, that's why we can be at ease. The Tao is always at ease. It overcomes without competing, answers without speaking a word, arrives without being summoned, accomplishes without a plan. I had no plan of what was going to happen today, and I never do when the Tao comes up, but here we are, at ease. Its net covers the whole universe, and though its meshes are wide, it doesn't let a thing slip through. How beautiful. Man, I really love it. Like, oh man. That's such a it's such a beautiful uh life that we get to live, isn't it? I love you guys. Thank you so much for joining. This is a Recover Yourself production. I'm your host, Martin John. I host the Recover Yourself podcast. You can work with me individually, either through my website, martinjon, martinjon.com, or if you're in Chicago, you can work with me in person at Satnam Yoga Chicago. So definitely check those things out. If you reach out to me and send me a DM on Instagram or anywhere, back channel me wherever you can find me, and all of my links are here on Wisdom. So definitely reach out to me. And I take 10 clients a month, and I only work with my clients for 4 sessions. And the whole point of it is to get you out recovering yourself, living your life. And the work that I do is pretty intense. It's gentle, but it's intense, and it's honest. So we get to the core of things pretty quick. So yeah, other than that, thank you all once again. This is a Recover Yourself production, and until next time, Keep recovering yourself.